Please tell the viewers exactly what is at stake here.
Well, Michelle, what we are going to focus on right now is what would be at stake if there was a credit downgrade of the United States. And while there's a lot of debate on this, because some people say that actually that downgrade is already factored in to the stock market, it may already be factored in to the bond market. What we've seen in Treasury yields is that they haven't gone up a lot. But over the long term, I believe the consensus is, number one, that a debt downgrade of U.S. credits would mean higher borrowing costs for Uncle Sam. It likely would mean that over time, interest rates would creep up. According to J.P. Morgan Chase, maybe by as much as 0.7%, maybe 0.75%, and that could add $100 billion a year in added borrowing costs to the taxpayers' tab. But it doesn't stop there. What a lot of people are worried about, since interest rates are benchmarked off of treasuries, is what would happen in other parts of the interest rate spectrum. Municipalities, states, localities, universities, hospitals, sewer districts, they too might face higher borrowing costs. According to Moody's, up to $130 billion worth of municipal bonds might lose their AAA rating if Uncle Sam loses his. And then, if it moves on into the housing market, mortgage rates, consumers, borrowers, businesses might face higher rates as well. When you get rates on borrowing, higher borrowing costs, you get less borrowing. In theory, then, you get less spending, and you get a less robust economy, which might then also lead to more unemployment. And the other thing we've seen in recent months is a decline in the dollar. If money gradually migrates away from Treasury securities, and roughly half of our Treasury securities are held by overseas holders, that might mean that the dollar would weaken. And that, in turn, could move in the form of higher prices on imports. And what is our biggest import? Of course, it is oil. But we've never been here before, so we really don't know what the effect of a downgrade would be. As long as any of us has been alive, the U.S. has had a AAA rating. Let's talk more about what is going on in the House today with Republican Nan Hayworth of New York and Earl Blumenauer of Oregon. Nan, you were saying as we began that the vibe feels a little different to you today. Why and what specifically?
Well, it does, because it seems clear that Speaker Boehner will have the votes that he needs to pass the bill that he's proposed, the balanced budget plan, if you will, for the future, and to raise the debt ceiling responsibly now. So I think that's giving a lot of people beyond the House of Representatives hope that we will be able to avoid a default by the Treasury deadline.
Congressman Blumenauer, are you encouraged where things stand? You're on the other side of the aisle.
I'm actually distressed that we're in this point in the first place. We've raised the debt ceiling 117 times. This is the first time a portion of Congress has tried to take it hostage to inflict their view of the future. And you just went through a litany of what could in fact happen. The point is, nobody knows. It's not good, and it's completely unnecessary. Boehner may or may not have twisted enough arms to get people to change their minds and support it, but it's not going to pass the Senate. And there is no indication that my Republican friends are willing to ever make the difficult votes to cut spending. Not talk about it theoretically, but actually cut spending to comport with their vision of the future. The American public wants a balanced approach. Modest revenue increases, sensible reductions. Ultimately, we will do that. I'm not confident we're going to do it soon enough.
Let's go to Englewood Cliffs, to headquarters in Michelle. Michelle?
Representative Hayworth, I'm curious about your use of the word default. You don't want us to default. When you speak to a financial audience, they have a very specific understanding of default. It means not paying the interest on our debt. Is that what you mean? Is that truly a possibility? Do we not have enough cash? And if you think that is a possibility, where do you get that impression? Is that Treasury telling you that we may not pay our interest on our debts?
No, Michelle, I'm using the term in the
more, if you will, popular sense, Treasury will absolutely be paying its sovereign debt by everything that I know. So that's not the issue. The issue really fundamentally, and the Wall Street Journal talked about it in its editorial today, is that we have to address the long term. We have to have a plan in place that will responsibly grow our economy, that will take care of those 14 million Americans who desperately need jobs, and that's why we can't have tax increases. But yes, absolutely, get the enormous federal spending juggernaut to stop. And that is what we in the House majority have started to do really uniquely in the history of this Congress. We are actually bending the spending trajectory down, and that is crucial to our long-term outlook. We want to meet that technical deadline, but we want to have a plan for the future.
Representative Blumenauer, Ken Langone, one of the founders of Home Depot, on earlier today, and he spoke about President Obama specifically during this crisis, if you want to call it. Here's what he had to say. I want to get your response to how he described the president.
The thing I fear most about the future of America is divide us. Divide us, we all lose. And this has got to stop. And if he's listening or one of his people are listening, you can quote me exactly for what I said. He is not acting presidential. He is behaving in a way designed, in my opinion, to divide us.
Ken Langone even called him petulant. Sir, what do you think of that? Is the president being divisive?
No, absolutely not. The majority of the American public support a balanced approach. The president has actually made a number of concessions that I think make some of his supporters uncomfortable, but it wasn't good enough. The faction that is in control of the House right now has sort of a take-no-prisoner mentality in a theoretical sense. Bear in mind when they actually had a chance to implement that vision, and Nan, to her credit, voted against the Republican Study Committee 10%, 11% cut in the EPA budget and the Interior budget. But that's what it would cost. The president is trying, I think, to be, has been more than reasonable, and the American public supports a balanced approach, and ultimately I think that's what we'll get.
Congressman Blumenauer, thank you very much. Congressman Hayworth, good to have you both here. We'll have you back soon.
Okay.
Enjoyed it.
Thank
Michelle?
you.
All right, Tyler, when we come back.